Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about the short story that I've given you, and especially the beginning of this shorter story, so the first paragraph. First, we need to focus on the genre of the short story because it's a very specific genre and it's not the same as a novel. So by analyzing the characteristics of this genre, we're going to better understand the short story that you have to read. So, the a short story can be defined as a narrative, so as a story, a fictional story, which is brief and shorter than a novel. So, its first characteristic is the length of the written words. So some people give a specific number of words that you shouldn't exceed if you want to write a short story. And Poe expressed the length in terms of duration, and he said that a short story should be read by the reader between 30 minutes and 2 hours. So, since it's brief and shorter than a novel, the main characteristic is the idea of economy, and we're going to see that the economy can be seen and noticed throughout different elements in the short story. So, first, the setting. So usually, you've got a setting which is not described, but which is more resembling to a typical setting. Then, the plot. So the plot has only it has a single contained plot line, but at the same time it is a full story. So a full story means that you've got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that it follows the plot diagram that we have seen, meaning the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action. No, sorry, I made a mistake. It's exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, and end. But what is specific in a short story? It's this idea that usually the beginning is in medias res beginning. You might have seen this word. It's a Latin word, a Latin expression, which means that the story starts without any introduction, without any explanation, and the reader is thus plunged into the story and has to make up the different links, the links and the details that he doesn't have. So that's it for the plot. So we talked about the medias res beginning, and the end of a short story usually is a twist. A twist, it's an end which gives no explanation, which comes very abruptly, and whose effect is mainly to surprise the reader. So this is it for the plot. So since it's short, you have only a few characters. Then, this idea of characterization is really important in a short story. The concept of characterization is the creation of the characters by the writer to make the character come alive, and make the character appear as real as possible to the reader. So, in a short story, the characterization is not done through a description of the character, but the characters are usually disclosed through the actions that they are doing or through the words that they are saying. So in a way, the characters are shown to the reader rather than explained to the reader, and this is very important. And obviously, since it's short, the style or the narrative is concise. You usually have omission, you usually have a lack of details, and the reader must be extremely active, and more active maybe than in a novel, because he has to read between the lines and make up for the details that are missing and the events that are not explained or detailed. And so the main goal of the short story is to create an effect on the reader, and a single effect conveyed by this single contained plot line and through the concise narrative. So this is it for the general characteristics of a short story, but this is important to understand this specific genre. So you had to analyze the first paragraph of the short story called The Telltale Heart. So we'll go back to the title at the end of our analysis. So in this first paragraph, we are presented to a I here. So this I seems to be the narrator, so it's a first-person narrative. He is totally unknown. We don't have any information about his name, about his job, about his physical description, his look, etc. What we know about him is that he's ill. He talks about a disease. He's ill, but he claims that he's not mad. He's nervous, but he's not mad for him. What is interesting in this beginning is that we are introduced to a form of dialogue interaction between this I and a you, and a you can be us, can be the reader, can be anybody who read the short story, or maybe somebody else. So it's really the narrator, this I, wants to convince this you, the reader, that he's not mad, that he's only ill, and that he's able to be a reliable narrator and a reliable storyteller. So in a way, he says that he's going to tell a story, and this is going to prove that he's not mad. So in a way, he's challenging the reader and wants to prove the reader that the reader is wrong, that this you is wrong, and that this I is right. So what about the style? So you can see without reading that the first paragraph is full of punctuation. So we've got, so that's what I underline in yellow. So exclamation marks, you've got dashes, you've got also lots of question of the dashes, questions. So please take a pen and highlight this. And so it creates, it's really syncopated, a syncopated syntax, because the sentence in a way is broken. You've got also short sentences, you've got sentences with no verbs, so you've got sentences which are broken in the middle, which are interrupted in the middle. So these punctuation signs creates lots of pauses when you read the paragraph, and these pauses create like a staccato effect. So this idea of syncopating effect that can depict, that can represent the anxiety of the narrator. The first sentence is really particular because it's a backward syntax. Very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. So it can remind you of Yoda in Star Wars. It's the way he's talking. And the fact that what should have been the complement is at the beginning of the sentence really insists on this state of nervousness and of this state of angst and tension. So it's a way to reinforce his anxiety. So from all this, we need to know in a short story, in a fiction, in a novel, if we can trust the narrator. That means if the narrator is reliable and if the reader can have full trust in him. So from the syntax, which is unorthodox, the numerous pauses, the words, the ominous diction, so that's what I circled in red. All these words, dreadfully, nervous, mad, disease, hell, really creates or casts doubt in the mind of the reader about the sanity of the narrator, and about the fact that is he reliable or not. He is also saying that his ability to hear all the things from heaven and hell. So here, I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth, heard many things in hell. So for the narrator, this is the proof that he's sane, but for the reader, this is maybe an indication that he's not. So we've got lots of paradoxes and lots of inner contradiction. So and the fact that he really, in 4 lines, he really insists several times on the fact that he is not mad but only ill, and the fact of insisting on his sanity really reflect the fact that he might be mad, and that his mental state is questionable, and finally that the reader might think that is not reliable. So this beginning corresponds to a very typical beginning of the short story, that as we have seen just previously, it's an in medias res beginning. So you are introduced into the story without exposition, without introduction, in the middle of a conversation between an I and a you, and you don't know anything about the I and the situation, the place, the time, etc. So what can we expect from this beginning? So we can expect a story, because he claims that he's a storyteller and that he's going to tell us a full story. So we're going to have a full story, a beginning, a middle, and an end. We can expect a form of flashback, because the first paragraph, in terms of chronology, the first paragraph doesn't correspond to the rest of the story. So the rest of the story corresponds to a past, and this corresponds to the present of the character. We can expect that he's going to focus a lot on his senses, and specifically on the hearing, on the sense of hearing. So when you read, really be careful about how the narrator manages to convey these sounds, and why are they so important for the narrator, and what they can represent also. And since we think that he's not totally reliable, so we might think that he's going to lie to us, or that he's going to create some sense of mystery, and this idea of madness, which can infuse the whole story. So I hope it's clear. So now you're ready to read the whole story and to answer all the other questions. So take your time. You're not obliged to understand everything to understand the main goal of the short story, the characteristics. So don't be too hard on you. And read it several times at several moments, because you're going to be able to better understand progressively better understand the story. Right, so see you soon, and bye-bye.